Welcome to Kids Learning Lab, a learning podcast made just for kids. In this episode, we'll talk about how Alexander Graham Bell invented the first telephone. Before telephones, people used to write letters or send messages with wires, but it was a slow way to communicate. Alexander Graham Bell, who was a scientist and inventor, wanted to create a machine that could transmit sound through wires so that people could talk to each other really fast. Bell started experimenting with different materials and methods to create a machine that could transmit sound. One day, he spilled some acid on his clothing while working in his lab. He called out to his assistant, Watson, who was in another room, to come help him. Watson heard Bell's voice through the wires and rushed to help him. This was the first time that Bell had transmitted sound over wires, and it was the beginning of the telephone. It took a lot more work to make the invention better and make it okay for everyday use. Bell and his team worked on improving the design and the technology. The first public demonstration of the telephone was made in 1876 at the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. This is an exposition where people show off inventions. Bell spoke into the device, and his assistant Watson, who was on the other end of the line, heard him clearly. The telephone quickly became popular and transformed the way people communicated. Instead of waiting for days or weeks for a letter to arrive, people could now talk to each other instantly. The IBM Simon was the first cell phone to have a touchscreen. It is called a cell phone because it records what you say, then sends it to a tower called a cell tower. This tower then sends the recording to the cell tower closest to the person you're talking to. Then that cell tower sends the recording to the cell phone you are talking to. Nowadays, phones are much more popular. With the release of the iPhone in 2007, many people started buying phones from different companies. Almost everyone has a cell phone now. These phones can do a lot more than just call, such as downloading different applications, or apps for short, that can let you do different things. Some examples are gaming apps, web browsers, maps, and other apps. Thanks for listening to this episode of Kids Learning Lab. If you want to test your knowledge, we have a short quiz in the description. You can also send us ideas by opening up our Spotify webpage and clicking Send Message. Thanks for listening.